Winter is coming, and for many lifters that can only mean one thing, the winter bulk. 3 to 4 solid months of hardcore training and eating food, followed by a weight cut in the spring, and a summer spent shirtless in the sun showing off those new gains. Winter, one spoke in the turning wheel of the year. I've always liked the traditional bodybuilding pattern. It feels like a nod back to forgotten times when the seasons meant something, when the dark months were about sheltering away and keeping warm, about making it through and surviving. It makes sense body weight would naturally go up during winter in cold parts of the world as people likely moved less in general. It also makes sense body weight would drop during the warmer months when there was work to do. It seems like maybe that natural cycle is still inside us just a bit. Anyway, there are an endless number of ways you could go about the winter bulk, thousands of different muscle building programs and variations of them all out there you could follow, hundreds of thousands probably. Committing to one is a good way to go. Infinitely better in my opinion than just kinda doing whatever. The winter bulk is not the time for idle training or for experimenting with novel training modalities which place very little tension on the muscles and offer little to no room for progressive overload. That is, if muscle is the goal, or at least part of your goals. If not, then by all means do whatever sounds fun. There are no rules, but if you're intentionally eating in a calorie surplus and you want to grow, don't waste it. You need some hard, heavy training. Heavy being a relative term, of course. Yes, following a basic program is smart. Training with the sole purpose of building muscle and nothing else works. But today, I'd like to offer an alternate route, a road you might follow to finally reach that next peak you've been trying so hard to summit, specialization. This path has worked for countless bodybuilders and strength trainees alike, and sharing my experience, it's responsible for nearly every single pound of muscle I've added to my body since that day I first started working out. Specialization, more a mindset than anything. It's like a guiding light you might follow to stay on track with your training, to guarantee gains are happening. Before explaining the idea, I should make one thing clear. This video is made under the assumption that getting better in some way with load-bearing exercise will build muscle, or said plainly, that strength and muscle go together. You get one, you get both. There are of course opinions on which comes first, and there's always the argument that in order to maximize the strength of a muscle, specific training must be done, but that's all down there in the dirt. On the surface level, strength and muscle are connected. Get better at something that places the muscles under a good deal of tension, and the muscles will grow. Hopefully we can agree on that. So to specialize, rather than going into your bulk with the idea, I want to build some muscle, simply pick a thing, a single thing, and exercise like the sandbag to shoulder, a skill, maybe the planche for example, or a trait like strength endurance, whatever excites you. Set what might at first seem an unreasonable goal for that thing, and put everything you have towards reaching it at the expense of all others, and that's it, the path to unlimited muscle. I'm telling you, get to the point where you care so much about that goal, to the point where it consumes you and you think about it all day, and you'll reach the end of that spring cut an entirely new person. A single goal, you might say. What about balance? What about building the most well-rounded, aesthetic body possible? If I choose to specialize in one exercise, won't I be missing out? Won't I be wasting the true potential of the winter bulk? Valid questions. How about some imagery? Consider 2 different scenarios. In scenario 1, you have 10 different goals you want to achieve, each one equally important in your mind. This is represented by 10 different jars you have set on your kitchen counter. Each day of your bulk, you get 1 marble to do with as you please, to put in whichever jar you'd like, and reaching a goal means filling a jar to the top. If you try to fill them all, and your bulk lasts 100 days, each jar now has 10 marbles inside and is 10% full. Not bad. 10% there with 10 different things is still progress, but really, you never truly completed anything. You were spread too thin. In scenario 2, you've decided to specialize, to go all in on one thing. Now 1 jar is placed in front of the others, and with each passing day you fill it more and more until finally the seasons start to change, you place that 100th marble and the jar is full. Goal achieved. 9 jars stayed at maintenance level, while 1 leveled up 100 times. In this scenario, not only did you actually accomplish something completely, you've now gone 10 times further in one area than you did with anything in scenario 1. The question of balance remains though. In scenario 2, you've made yourself into some kind of unbalanced master of one. Who wants that? True in a way, but in the long run, I'd argue the unbalanced approach is actually the path to ultimate balance for one simple reason. By achieving a high-level goal, you realize what you're capable of, and reaching other high-level goals becomes less daunting. Actually accomplishing something great now improves your potential for achieving great things in the future. First, you become a master of one, then a master of another, and so on and so forth until eventually you're a master of many. Here's another way to look at this. Have you ever played a role-playing video game that you were really bad at when you first started? Say something like a Souls game, maybe Elden Ring or Bloodborne. Well, in a game like that, if you keep dying over and over, you're not going to spend the attribute points you get from leveling up on a bunch of different stats for the sake of balance. No, you'll just go all in on vitality straight away, on increasing health points so you can survive longer. This is unbalanced initially, but with that larger health pool, you can stay alive for longer, which means you can gather more experience points without losing them, which means faster progress for the next stat you choose. After that, maybe you pick one that increases damage, and once that matches your vitality level, you'd find you can both stay alive longer and defeat enemies faster, or take on more challenging enemies, which again means gathering experience gets easier and the cycle continues. Of course, the experience needed for each stat point raises as your level increases, but you get the picture. I like those analogies, both the jars of marbles and the video game. I think they sorta get the idea across and might be motivating, but we can go further. In truth, those examples really only scratch the surface. Remember, we're talking about muscle here, going on a bulk with the intention of getting jacked, and those scenarios don't take into consideration the fact that each skill or exercise or whatever you choose to focus on will likely build muscle over a large area of the body, and chasing a goal doesn't mean only doing that goal and nothing else. If you wanted to master the sandbag to shoulder, for example, you wouldn't only do the sandbag to shoulder, you'd also do other exercises to help build it up, bear hug carries, rows, etc., meaning it's likely in the end, filling one jar to the brim will mean complete muscular development everywhere. I'm getting ahead of myself though. Let's cover how you might actually make a training program centered around specialization. All you have to do is pick something. That could be a specific exercise or skill, or an attribute. Decide which attribute you'd like to pursue within that exercise or skill, or which exercises you'd like to use to train that attribute. Set a specific goal for whatever you chose, a seemingly unrealistic one is best, and tailor every part of your training towards achieving it. Example 1. I want to focus on the barbell deadlift as my exercise, and the attribute I'd like to apply to it is max strength, so my goal is reaching a 405-pound deadlift for 1 rep. There it is. Now all you have to do is get there by any means possible. The center of the puzzle is there, the 405 max deadlift, acting as a guide, and all that's left is to fill in the remaining pieces. Well, if a 1 rep max deadlift is your goal and you're still working towards 405, then it makes sense you'd want to max out at least once a week to learn the skill of maxing out, and you'd want to get some volume in as well to master the movement. Maybe you'll choose to rotate through different deadlift variations as the weeks go by for variety, or maybe you'll just stick to the basic conventional deadlift. There are many paths you might take. Choose the one that sounds fun. Next, you'd look at the muscles involved with deadlifts and do other exercises to build them. Rows for the upper back, maybe some back extensions. You'd look for weak points in your deadlift and find ways to strengthen them. To keep those muscles not involved with deadlifts at maintenance, you might add a few sets of pressing or direct arm work once a week. You don't need much to keep muscle from regressing. Example 2, I want to improve my strength endurance. Now, choosing an attribute like that is a good start, but it's too broad. Just like you needed to decide what deadlift goal you were working towards. In our example, it was a 1 rep max, but it could have been anything, a 20 rep max even. Here, you also need to narrow things down in order to find a tangible goal of some kind. What training method will I use to improve my strength endurance? Maybe you decide on an upper body calisthenics circuit. Right now, you can complete your chosen circuit for 100 reps in 20 minutes, and by the end of the training phase, you want to reach that same circuit for 300 reps in that time while also being at a heavier body weight. This is a bulk, remember. There we go. That's a clear-cut and to-the-point path to follow. In this example, you'd likely want to do circuits at least 3 times a week. You'd want to pick one circuit as your main goal, but also have a variety of other circuits you rotate through to make sure you never hit a wall and to prevent overuse issues. After that, you could again look at the muscles involved with your goal circuit and your weak points and find ways during the week to strengthen them. If you have neutral grip pull-ups in your circuit, for example, and they always hold you back, you might add hammer curls to your program, maybe some lat isolation. You could practice isometrics at whichever point in the pull-up is hardest for you. You might add some non-circuit related strength endurance stuff to your program too. If your endurance is lacking, then maybe adding some basic cardio would be a good idea. If your muscles keep wearing out before your endurance during the circuits, you might consider doing a few basic sets to failure at some point during the week. You'd probably want to add a couple sets for the legs at least once a week too, for maintenance, but everything else will be focused on reaching those 300 reps in 20 minutes. And it's as easy as that. Choose a goal, build a program around accomplishing it, and push yourself as if that goal truly matters. In this way, you can see, where muscle is concerned, rather than just one specific boost, spending your experience points on health or putting all your marbles into a jar that says biceps or something like that, choosing a specific goal will most likely actually lead to building lots of muscle everywhere. A deadlift builds most of the body, a calisthenics circuit works the entire upper body, and any accessory exercises you do will cover additional ground too. As I said earlier, this is more a mindset than anything. The idea is that by chasing one specific goal, you will end up much further along than you would if you tried to juggle a bunch of things at once, or had a vague goal like, I want muscle, or worst of all, didn't have a goal at all. When you know what you're training for and you're obsessed with getting it, everything becomes locked in, and you can't lose. The program you follow might even end up looking identical to a program not made for your goal, but the way you approach it will be completely different. If the sandbag to shoulder is your goal, then the bear hug carries in your program gain an extra level of meaning because you know every bit of strength you add to your carries will mean more potential for shouldering heavier weights. With the need to master the planche consuming your thoughts, you can bet you're going to put everything you have into that set of weighted dips because you know it will bring you closer to your goal. The shift may be subtle, but it's everything. To share specific examples from my training, there are basically 3 distinct periods where I made almost all of my gains. There's also a lot of empty space in the middle I spent spinning my wheels, getting nowhere because I didn't have specific goals. I just wanted to build muscle in a general sense. It didn't work. First was barbell deadlifts. I'd been stuck at my starting weight for a long time, got obsessed with deadlifts, and focused everything on getting a stronger 1-rep max, and after a bulk and cut, I had built a bunch of muscle, more in a couple months than I had in over a year before. Many years after that, I discovered stone and sandbag lifting, got obsessed with shouldering heavy things, and again, built a bunch of muscle. After that, it was sandbag box squats, and once again, having a specific goal propelled me forward. I look back on all the years I spent trying to do too many things at once, constantly either plateaued or just barely inching forward, and wonder where I might be now if I'd known how effective specialization is sooner. I truly believe a program focused on improving a tangible thing, on improving something you actually do, like a calisthenics skill or a sandbag exercise, will almost always build more muscle than a program focused solely on muscle and nothing else. At least that's been my experience, and the experience of at least hundreds, if not thousands of others I've talked with who became obsessed with sandbags and ended up getting jacked. I would like to give a quick warning. Although this is an inherently unbalanced approach, balance must still be maintained when it comes to the integrity of the body. Some exercises only build you up, and no amount of doing them, within reason, will shape you into a person who doesn't function correctly, meaning mostly they improve posture and joint integrity rather than ruining it. Pretty much anything focused on the back side of the body, for example, likely won't cause any issues. The back pulls you into proper alignment. This is part of why I was able to train my back every single day for over 800 days without ever having any joint or posture issues, aside from one brief instance of tendinitis, but that came from poor programming on my part. Now consider the opposite. If you choose the bench press as your exercise, for example, you will need to add some maintenance work to your program. If you only ever did bench and exercises focused on the chest, front delts, and triceps, you might end up with internally rotated shoulders and pain. To counteract that, at the bare minimum, you would want to add some kind of rowing to your program. Again, that's just part of solving the puzzle, and it doesn't mean a bench press or anything similar is bad. You just have to be aware of how different exercises affect the body. Before ending the video, I thought I'd mention some things that might help you out if you want to build a program around one specific sandbag exercise, just because I've done that multiple times myself and have some experience. The first thing to consider is that you can only realistically do so much productive work in a workout with explosive or technical movements. If you've chosen the sandbag to shoulder as your goal, for example, and you're chasing a higher max lift, then trying to do 50 heavy reps in a single workout would likely be a bad idea. Much of that work would be unproductive at best, and most likely you'd just end up accumulating a bunch of failed reps. If you were going for something like 100 reps with a light sandbag as your goal, that would be one thing, but when chasing heavy weight, you'll want to stop and move on for the day when your power level drops and or when your focus begins to fade. If your main goal movement is technical or power-based in any way, aim for perfect practice, move on when that practice stops being perfect, and get your volume in with accessories. Second, most sandbag exercises are synergistic. They all feed into each other, so having a variety of movements in your program will likely be a good idea. At the bare minimum, I'd recommend spending some of your time on sandbag rows and bear hug carries, as well as the basic lift from the lap to the chest and or box squats, as those exercises hit pretty much everything involved with lifting sandbags in the most straightforward way. Next, consider that there are training tools outside of sandbags that can be used to improve them. For example, if you have lagging biceps, adding some basic barbell curls to your training can speed things up. If your goal is shouldering the most amount of weight possible but you're weak off the ground, sandbag rows will help, but stuff like barbell deadlifts or other heavy hip hinge movements can help too. Don't feel like you need to box yourself into using only sandbags. I like doing that and I think it works great, but if you have other tools available and you like using them, definitely do. Don't be afraid to double down on your strengths either. Even if your posterior chain is strong already, adding something like back extensions to make it even stronger will only help. On that same note, if your goal is strength endurance with box squats, taking a heavy weight for high reps for example, adding calisthenic circuits to your program can be a good idea. That might seem completely random, but circuits build strength endurance better than most things in existence, and will carry over to your box squats. They also let you train strength endurance more often, as there are only so many times per week you can realistically do high rep box squats before burning out. In this way, you can see that potential for creating a completely unique training routine is nearly infinite. Who would have thought bodyweight calisthenics would help with heavy sandbags? But they do. Continuing on with the box squat example, you could also make any isolation work you do specific to strength endurance too by using high reps, like 30 plus per set, or by doing something like timed AMRAP sets, max curls in 5 minutes for example. When strength endurance is the goal, finding little ways of forcing yourself to keep going when you'd rather not, training each individual muscle to endure on its own for a long time, it all adds up. Also, there are some muscle groups you can never develop too far when the goal is lifting heavy sandbags in general. The upper back, for example, never underestimate the value of high volume rows and pull-ups. The abs and low back too, isolating those is always a good idea. Extra arm and forearm and grip strength only ever makes you better. Sandbags do build the quads, but they are biased towards the back side of the body, typically at least, so adding some direct work for the quads could help, and would most likely improve leg drive with your main exercise, meaning more strength. If your goal is something like carrying a bodyweight sandbag for a mile, don't underestimate the power of variety. Even if the goal is a bear hug carry, for example, spending time with shoulder carries, carries with an over-under arm position, off-center carries, etc., it all helps. I could go on with specific examples. If you have any goals you think you'd like to work towards that don't fit with anything I've said thus far, definitely reach out in the comments or on the Stone Circle community page on my website. I'm always glad for the opportunity to think about fun scenarios and how they might be solved. There are also some really intelligent lifters over there, always willing to give advice. Finding the perfect combination of exercises to suit your specific goal can be a lot of fun, and can be a great path towards learning too. If you need an accessory exercise for your mid-shin deadlift sticking point but you don't know what to do, well, now you have something cool to research and maybe something new to try. If you find your end range bicep strength is really lacking and preventing you from reaching your goal, again, now you have a reason to seek out knowledge. If you want examples of how I chose to use this specialization approach with sandbags, maybe to use as a reference for some motivation, or if you'd rather just skip creating your own routine and get straight to work, I've made 2 full program videos you can watch here on YouTube. Sandbag hypertrophy is all about improving max sandbag to shoulder strength and power, and sandbag intensity is about strength endurance and high rep sandbag box squats. Both of those programs have a main goal and both build a lot of muscle too. I'll have links in the description if you want to check them out. If you do, what you'll probably notice straight away is that those programs are actually pretty well rounded, and that's kind of the point. Having one specific goal doesn't mean you only do that one thing. You also do a lot of other things too, to make your body big and strong in a more general sense, and to ward off any potential weak points, stopping them in their tracks before they even get the chance to exist, all in service of completing the task you've set for yourself. Saying this one final time, specialization is more like a mindset you can use to speed up your progress progress rather than a rule you must follow. When you have one particular thing in mind you want to improve, then you know where you're going, and everything becomes meaningful. You know that every rep you do takes you one step closer, so you can't help but try. When you have a real goal, you stop simply exercising for the sake of itself or just for the muscle, and you train because you know hard work will get you where you want to go. It will get you that thing you want, and when you have a mindset like that, the gains are all but guaranteed. And with that, I think I've covered pretty much everything. If you're looking to start a winter bulk, maybe you'll give this idea a try. If you do, just remember your goal should be an epic one. Don't hold back. You are capable of more than you might think. Force yourself to push with your entire being and settle in for one incredible journey. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.